So before we begin, I would like to ask a few questions. So how many of you have contributed to any open source project before? So a few hands, okay. And how many of you aspire to contribute to any open source project? Awesome. Okay. So today I am going to talk specifically about contributing to Marinate, which is writing tests in Python, what Mozilla Firefox and Firefox OS uses. So how many people have written any test case in Python before? Few of them. Okay, fine. So I know my audience now. So let's begin. Who am I?
CuriousLearner.
Yeah, so crowd. I'm one of you, a part of the community. I'm a Mozilla rep and an open source enthusiast, and anyways also known as CuriousLearner, since my IRC handle and GitHub and everything is CuriousLearner. So we'll be talking about Marinate today. So what exactly is Marinate? Well, it is an automation driver for Mozilla's Gecko engine. It would help you to control either the UI or the internal JS of your Gecko platform such as Firefox. You can control both Chrome and content. More about this context later on. This would give you ability to replicate user actions. Now, you need to understand that all of the Mozilla's product uses a core technology which is the Gecko engine, right? And everything like Firefox OS, messaging client like Thunderbird, InstantBird, everything internally uses Gecko engine. They are built on Gecko engine. So what we are exactly doing here is we have a module in the Gecko engine itself, which is made for testing your UI and internal JS. So we are just automating test cases here. So how many of you have heard about Selenium? Wow, nice. So think of Marinate among it is among similar lines as Selenium. So how does it work? Well, it has a client-server architecture where you are the client who would write test cases, instruct what to do, and a Marinate-enabled build of Firefox would execute it for you. So server which takes requests and executes them in Gecko, and the client sends the command to the server, and server executes that inside the browser. So before we even begin diving in the code, I would really like to stumble upon something which is very essential if you are contributing in any of the Mozilla's product, which is map. Now, I'll give a very brief intro of map since that is not what we are covering here. It is a command line interface which would help you to perform common tasks as developer. So say you want to build your Firefox instance or your Thunderbird instance or your InstantBird instance, you will execute everything with map. You build, run, test your builds using map, and much more. So we aren't going to cover that, but I'll show you what you can do. So I have this Mozilla central repository here. So I already have built the build ready. So once you clone this repository, you essentially do something like this. You say map build. So it would build the Firefox instance or InstantBird or whatever you are building. How do you decide that what particular technology you want to build? If you say you want to build InstantBird, so there is a special kind of file which is .mosconfig. You define specific options there. So since I already have the build ready and I cannot show you how the build works, how the building works because it would take a lot of time. On my Mac, it takes around 30 to 40 minutes. On a normal Linux laptop with 8 GB of RAM, it would take anywhere about 1.5 to 2 hours. But once the initial build is ready, the subsequent builds are pretty much faster. So what we're going to do is we need to first install the Marionette client, which is just as simple as doing pip install Marionette client. Next, we run a Marionette enabled build. Now, what do I exactly mean by running a Marionette enabled build? So, if I do Mac run, it would, since I have built Firefox browser, it would just shoot up the Firefox browser so that I could do anything what I want to do. But it wouldn't actually activate the Marionette server. Remember, we talked about a Marionette client and a Marionette server. So, when I do Mac run Marionette, it would also enable the Marionette server inside the browser. So, we'll just do that. Mac run Marionette. And now, see, the nightly debug mode browser is shooting up. So yes, here it is, your custom built Firefox, which is ready to be played upon. So you can see a lot of events coming in, how the browser is starting up, but we won't cover that. So to show you a quick thing, so first of all, what we'll do is we'll go on through some slides. I'll teach you some basics of how Marionette works, and then we'll do a demo of it. So you have a client, you run a Marionette enabled build. Now you initialize the Marionette class and give it a parameter which is localhost in our case and a port, say 2828. Then comes the session management. So once your Firefox instance is booted up, you need to initialize a session. Everyone knows what a session is, right? You can also delete session and stuff like that, but we won't cover it here because if we just start session and delete session, then the entire purpose of the working would fade, right? We could do that later. So, context management. This is the most important concept. Now, you have two contexts whenever you build Firefox instance. A content context and a Chrome context. Any one of you who knows the difference between the two? No, okay. So, you have this little Firefox browser running. So, everything you see here is the client context. So, whenever you open a web page or any application, whatever you see here is the client context. And whatever the internally, whatever, even the debug inspect plugin or this thing, everything, the toolbar here comes in Chrome context. Fine. So, how do you tell your Marionette that we are using a particular context? So, you know, client, remember, client is an instance of Marionette class. And if you are patching bugs, then you'll probably not see this client word here, but you'll see something as self.marionette because you'll be writing the test cases inside that particular class. So you will reference it by self.marionette. You can set the context using this client.setContext and you give the context content or context Chrome, right? By default, whenever you start up the browser, it would be in context content. So, how do you navigate? I'll go through this quickly and I'll show you the live demo. You say a URL, you instruct the client to navigate to the particular URL. You give another URL, you instruct again to navigate to another. Then it has the go back and go forward options. Whatever you'll be doing actually manually sitting in on the Firefox browser, this would actually enable you to automate that. So, writing test cases, you could particularly kind of use this thing like insert that client, whatever the window is running, it is the exact same URL which you have just opened up in the browser. So, now the fun part. We'll be manipulating the DOM. So, there are two methods, find element and find elements. So find elements would, as expected, it would give you a list of elements, and find element would give you a single element here. Let's play with it. So after studying this thing, we'll just jump on to the demo. So what I do is, there is a Marionette driver which is essentially list of like helper methods for you. So you just import an instance of HTML element. You do client.findElement. Now here we have used by ID. Now in Marionette driver you have a class known as by, which would essentially help you in various sort of things which we would see later. So understand that. So how many of you are aware of CSS and HTML, right? Quite a few. Okay. So you give any element like ID equal to name or ID equal to first name, and this would get that particular UI element inside your Python to further manipulate it. Right? Then you give a you can get it by tag name. You can send keys to it. What do I mean by send keys is, suppose you have a text box. You need to input something. So you just say, I need to send this input to that particular box. So if you have a button, so in case you have a button, you could just say element.click, right? So let's jump on to the demo. I'm sorry, I had to split the screens so as you can see whatever I am doing on the left part is reflecting on our Marionette build. That's why in the starting I told you to come forward. So we'll execute it line by line. So we say from Marionette import Marionette. This is done. Now we initialize a Marionette instance. That is also done. Now see, we have a Marionette server running right here on the build, and once I say client.start session, it would connect to it. See, I got a bunch of response, which is the session, and this would be same as client.session. So in case you need to know whatever session variables right now are, you could access them by client.session. See, this is exactly same. Now, I told you that by default the context is content. So what we do is, we first we know right now the context is content. We'll set up to the Chrome context and then back again to the content context, and I'll show you a bunch of cool stuff. So for the time being, let's do this. See, now I'll say the Marionette client to give me the entire page source of its Chrome context. And see. So one of the beautiful thing about Firefox is everything you see here in the browser is nothing but the combination of just three things: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Well, of course, when I talk about the client side stuff. If I talk about the Gecko engine, then it runs on C++. So see, we got a bunch of source so that we can manipulate these things, whatever we see here or the browser tab, everything is right here. Now we'll set the context to content, and we'll again see the page source. So see, now if you notice, let's just copy this line to show you that it is the same thing which it got here. Next important thing, the fun part. Now we'll make the browser work for us. So I'll instruct it to go to mozilla.org. Done. Now I say to go to my site. Done. Now I'll say go back. It's on the mozilla.org page. Then I say go forward and it's on the same page. Now to show you interaction, what we'll do is we'll fill in this contact form without even touching it manually. So for this to work, I'll first import a bunch of stuff. I already told you there is a by class in Marionette driver and there is also an HTML element instance. So everything you see on this web page, this is an HTML element, right? When you have a DOM, you have a set of nodes. You have a tree-like structure, and every node is referenced here, right? So what we do is we get the first name by ID, which is essentially this. We'll get last name, email, and message. That's okay, right? Nothing happened. But now the cool part. So I'll say that whatever element I am referencing with first name, send keys in Sanyam, and on last name send Khurana, on mail send this much text, and for message send this, right? When I execute this, see, it's filling up. Filled. See, remember, our main goal is to submit this contact form without even touching it. So I'll reference the element, the button element right here, submit button by name, and it has a name attribute which is essentially an action, right? It has name equal to action there. Now I say button dot click. See, it's submitting. So in the meantime, see, it just submitted the button. So what we'll do is now is we'll come back to the slides and know some more stuff about Marionette. So you have seen this, right? You have seen you could select by with class name. You could use a CSS selector. You could do it by name attribute of any HTML node. You could have a tag name here, like select for me all the elements which are in a paragraph in an HTML page, right? So you'll get a list of nodes and everything you need here. The most amazing thing is this link text, and the another one which I'll be showing you. So say you have a link, but most importantly you need the inner HTML of that page. So what this would say is, if you have a link which says I love Python redirecting to any of the web page, it would get it. Now this is the partial link text, and this is the exactly same as the previously seen link text, but it has the ability to partially search the text. Everyone knows what is this then? XPath, the cool XPath, right? So you could, if you have any problem in traversing your domain, you could just give it the XPath and it would get the element for you. Okay, that's enough. Now execute some JS. So before we begin, a bit of a warning. In case you run any asynchronous JavaScript which is not properly formatted, then essentially what you will do is you'll either hang your build or just crash your build, right? So simple script, just returning the multiplication of two elements. Now this is the async function, and it uses something known as marinate script finished, and this is important. Whenever you run an async function, you always need to give this marinate script finished inside it, so that your marinate server knows that your script has properly executed. So how many of you have made JavaScript alerts? Every one of you. So in case you make one, you could just use the switch to alert function to go to it and automating that stuff too by asserting what the alert dot what the text inside the alert is, and you could accept it. So let's come back, and so now we are seeing the same old example of multiplying two numbers. So you won't see anything on the web page executing itself, but the marinate server running would essentially give you the result. See, it gives 5 cross 7 is 35. Now we'll execute another script to see that it is actually the marinate instance which is responding to you. So we say to the client that execute script which says alert I love Mozilla. Cool. So I promise you we'll never ever touch the build in this process. So we'll just execute switch to alert section so that our marinate server knows what node it is exactly manipulating here, and we get the alert.text. See, it get I love Mozilla, right? Now we'll just accept the alert. Alert gone. We just accepted it. Now I'm kind of like done with the Firefox kind of thing. But if you have a Firefox OS phone, then you could use something such as actions and multi-actions. So remember, Marinate is built so that you could automate test cases and you could exactly replicate user actions. So essentially what a user would do is he taps on his phone, doesn't lift up his finger, he just drags it around and on another corner of the screen and then lifts it up. So we can exactly replicate that particular action too. So simple, we get two elements by ID. We have an action object here which is available in the Marinate library. You declare an action instance. Then you say that action.press, press the first element on the screen, then wait for 10 seconds, move to the second element and then release. So you are exactly replicating what your user would do. So there is a bunch of stuff like you could get a window, you could define whatever the pixel values are, you could go to a particular section of the screen and so on and so forth. Once you define this action, see, it is not performed yet. You just told that my action instance is supposed to do this particular stuff. But when would it actually execute? When you do action.perform. Similarly, you have multi-actions. So how many of you have actually, while using your phone, have used more than one finger? Every one of you, right? So that is exactly what we are doing here. So we define two actions here. This is first action which would press element 1, move to 2 and then release. Element 3 to, and this is another action, and we just add it to the multi-touch, which is the multi-action instance here. There are another example like switch to window. You could execute a particular frame inside Firefox, which I won't cover here because it would be like really very long. So where to go from here? You need to go to this link, which is Mozilla Developer Network. So how many of you have heard of MDN? So in case you know JavaScript or you aspire to learn JavaScript, then MDN is a beautiful resource because it is written by someone known as Brendan Eich. So who knows him? Well, okay. Who is he? Who is he? You said you know him. Yeah, so he's the one who created JavaScript and he is the founder of Mozilla, the non-profit organization. The next step would be to learn about Firefox Puppeteer. So, see, what we exactly did here is having the shell execute something on the Marinette server. But once you are inside the Firefox code, you won't need this Python client anymore. But you need something built on top of this, which is exactly Firefox, what Firefox Puppeteer does. So it would give another set of functions, another set of methods to you to properly play with your Marinette instance. So, you have any questions which you could contribute to? So, anyone wants to ask anything? Go ahead.
How is Marinette different from Selenium?
So see, as I said, it is almost among similar lines as Selenium, but since see, Marinette is essentially not for manipulating the content scope. Whatever we actually did here was to depict you that it's actually kind of working. But the see, the toolbar and the tab bar, everything inside the Firefox browser comes inside the Chrome scope. So essentially, with Marinette, you are manipulating those elements. So Mozilla has something known as DXR. So you go to dxr.mozilla.org, you'll find the code of this UI thing, and you could pick it up whatever element you want to manipulate in the Chrome scope itself, and then you can automate this. So Firefox Puppeteer is something which would essentially help you in manipulating the Chrome scope itself. So it's not meant for content scope. It is just providing you an option to manipulate just the content scope, but our motive here is to have something which is capable of automating tests for Mozilla Firefox and Instant Bird, Thunderbird and stuff like that. Any more questions? No questions?
Why should I contribute?
Why should I contribute? First of all, it gives you a lot of happiness. So anytime you use Mozilla Firefox, you open this thing up, which everyone would do in their career if they are even using just Python. So I have also contributed to this developer tools, and I was kind of really very astonished when I saw how to debug this entire toolbar. So what exactly happens is, for debugging this particular toolbar, you have to run another toolbar remotely, which would essentially, when you say inspect element on that remote toolbar, it would help you in grabbing these elements, and then you can manipulate them. So it was kind of an inception. So I have contributed to this toolbar, then to Instant Bird. Then I specifically wanted to learn about how to write tests in Python, and all those 101 workshops wasn't actually kind of really very inspiring. It says you write a test case which says 2 plus 2 equal to 4 and asserting them. So I really want to see how do you write production code with test cases. So I thought to why not contribute to Marinette so that I'll read more of the code, how to write test cases, and essentially actually contribute to it also. So yeah, that was my another reason to contribute to Marinette. Okay. Also, if you need any help in continuous integration things in Firefox, I am also contributing there also. So it is something known as task cluster. So Mozilla have this tool which would help you in continuous integration, which have a bunch of Docker images and kind of cool stuff for releasing builds, right? So any other questions?